Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Language of Leadership. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Jen Forte, who is an EOS Implementer, and she's got a whole bunch of other things: wife, mother, entrepreneur, exeter. I watched this. I was looking at your EOS link, and it said, "I am."
An exited entrepreneur?
Exited entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I'm rereading it like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, did Jen mean excited entrepreneur?
No, apparently it's a thing, who knew? But yes, exited entrepreneur is a way of, getting it out there quickly that I have been an entrepreneur, but I am no longer owning a business currently. Right. Although I do own my EOS practice, but yes.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, you and your husband built a great dental practice over the years, right?
Yes.
And ended up with 6 locations. Then sold.
Yes.
Exited.
Yep.
Very nicely, right?
Yep, absolutely.
A few years back. So, Jen, with Language of Leadership, we talk a lot about the idea that it's not really about just language, in an organization. And when you build a brand, when you build an organization, what you really want out of the team, right, is everyone becoming a brand ambassador in a sense, where they feel everything that you and your husband feel, Eric, feel about the way the business is run or supposed to be run. And that means everything. That means the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you write emails, the way you interact with patients, prospects, right? So talk a little bit about that, because that process, we discuss that all the time here, is tough. It's not easy.
It's very tough. And, so we bought our first dental practice 22 years ago, I think now at this point. And so one practice turned into 2, turned into 3, and we operated them fairly individually and separately for a while. We kept the brand of the doctor that we had bought the other 2 practices from for some time. And so it took us a while to get to where we said we want to have one brand and one standard and have things be consistent across those locations. Yeah. And so you talk about a process. I mean, it was probably 5 years before we were anything close to that. It was funny because as a leadership team, one of our biggest debates was whether we were going to make all blue or all black scrubs. We couldn't decide. So for a long time, we didn't. But anyway, it is a very deliberate process. And you're absolutely right. It touches every single thing. And something that was always very important to us was the patient experience. It's our job to hire good dentists and to be good dentists, but it's then their job to make the patient feel a certain kind of way. Patients are very nervous about going to the dental office. So that was another reason why consistency was important to us, that they were getting the same type of experience no matter where they went and no matter how many times they went, because that helps them to feel more comfortable and have more trust in what we're able to do.
Yeah. What was the point in time where you and Eric decided, like, we can't run these practices independently anymore? It is that consistency, but there had to be something that happened where you 2 sat down with the leadership team and said, we can't do it this way anymore.
Yeah, I think it was just a culmination of one of the reasons why we wanted to be a group practice to begin with, which was to be able to scale and take advantage of having more than one location and more than one set of resources. So that was kind of always the goal, and I think the inflection point was when we realized we were running 3 separate businesses, and that's 3 times the work. Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to start bringing it all together to centralize what we could. So I think that's really what it was. At 3, it was like, okay, this is a real thing now, and we need to do things differently.
Yeah. So the scrubs are funny, but that's one little thing.
Right.
But how did you get the team to begin to realize that this is the direction we're going? Okay, so metaphorically, we're all going to jump in this boat together, the Lakeview boat, right?
Yep.
And we're all going to row not just in the same direction, but in the right direction. How did you manage to do that?
The simplest answer to me is communication. So that was a big piece of my role in Lakeview is to help have organizational harmony, and you get that first and foremost, in my opinion, by communicating. Communicate a lot, communicate often, and communicate honestly. So we came at it very deliberately from early on. We had monthly team meetings, and that would be part of it, where you're bringing the whole team together at the same time.
Right.
Because, just like in many businesses, people work together, but they don't always interact so much together. This department's worried about this department's worried about that.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring them together as a whole. So it was, what do we have in common? So it would be about, again, how we want to treat our patients, and then how we want to treat each other. And we had a set of core values. And so we would talk about those core values at every huddle. Like every day we had huddles to just talk about the schedule for the day and make things run well. But we'd also talk about our core values, and we would do things like kudos. So, you would call a teammate out, or, give them a kudo when they did something nice. And we would always try to tie it back to the core values, So that was a big piece of it, was starting to unite that way. And then again, it was setting goals. We had goals always for, the business piece of dentistry. And then just letting them know what our goals were in these monthly meetings, reporting back on what our progress towards the goals were as a business. And then over time, as things got bigger and bigger, it was also about, we learned to try to talk about it in a way that ties in kind of what's in it for them, and why they want to be part of this.
Yeah.
And in the dental field, people go into it usually because they want to help people. They care about patients and they want to help people. So always tying it back into there, which was true for us. We did everything we did for our patients. We wanted to have a strong business, but we really believed that if you treat the patients well, if you treatment plan the best possible dentistry and give them a great patient experience, then all the business stuff comes, all the money comes, and the results that you want come.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned in medicine and dentistry, typically when you go through dental school or medical school, you're not taught how to run a business. You're not. And so, it becomes a differentiating factor for patients and prospects, really. I mean, you're really prospecting, right? You don't just hang your shingle out there and say, okay, it's Dr. Eric Forte's, new practice, and all of a sudden everyone's going to show up. The idea of running a business has to have a system in place, right? So what did you use for that? How did that kind of lead up to the point where you felt like, okay, there's some level of consistency here, and we have a framework around how we do business together?
It started with actually a marketing company that we used named Chrisad, they were consultants as much as they were about advertising or marketing. They did market research in dental patients. What do patients want in a practice? What do they not want? What do they know about dentistry? What do they not know? So that enabled us to kind of have a system around new patients and a system around language of how we said all of these things. That was the first step. And then the next step was we found EOS. And so in 2020, we read the book Traction, which lays out all of EOS from Gino Wickman. And we did that because we were struggling. I mean, it was 2020, everybody was struggling because of COVID. But we as a leadership team, there were certain things that we just couldn't get past, certain limits that we had, namely profitability. And just how do we continue to have this positive culture and the team all rowing in one direction when we're now 4 locations, going to be 5 locations, and it's growing and growing. Yeah. And so EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, as you know, and that is exactly what you just asked. That is an operating system for your business. It's a framework for how you're doing everything you need to do in your business for a leadership team. And then it also has tools that you can use throughout the organization to help everybody be rowing in that one direction with you.
Yeah. And so when you eventually exited, if we fast forward, you open up a 6th location, right? And then we don't really, we could mention who, the name of the company that bought your
the Smilist.
The Smilist. So once you exited, and I'm assuming Eric's still, obviously still working for the Smilist, which is a pretty big organization. If folks don't know,
grown a lot in the last couple of years, especially.
Lot,
Yes.
You decided that you wanted to be an EOS implementer.
Yes.
What was the impetus there, Jen?
So it's funny you talk about dentists and doctors don't have business, don't know business. I have a master's in social work. That's where I started my career. Yeah. I love helping people. I love the dynamics between people. Like, this is why I love communication so much and really crystal clear communication, so all of this ties in. It's what I was trained in, but it's really truly my passion and what gets me excited. And the truth is, by the time we were a 6-location dental practice with, the level of success that we had, I kind of delegated away a lot of what I really loved to do, which was to be more hands-on with people.
Sure.
And not just our CFO. So that was kind of really what I wanted my next chapter to be about, is something kind of smaller and something more intimately involved with people. So I really truly believe in the power of EOS. It was a game changer for our business in so many ways, and it fits so naturally with how I like to operate: the structure, the process, the communication, getting everyone rowing in one direction. And so it was kind of the next, natural step for me. We had hired an implementer, and he was such a positive influence on not just our business, but us personally and our growth as leaders. And I just was so excited about the opportunity to be able to do that for other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. When you get to a point where you have 100+ employees, right, and you have 6 locations, and it's you and your husband and the leadership team running this business, let's just throw 2 more things on that. You're a wife
Yes.
and you're a mom.
Yes.
So how, now you take the framework of EOS. How did that help you with the balance between, raising a family and running a business?
One of the biggest ways, especially between my husband and I, was, EOS starts with accountability. So you have an accountability chart, which is like an organizational chart, except it's really focused on accountabilities. It's not just, lines in an organization. And so prior to EOS, as a leadership team, we didn't really have a structure. There was 4 of us. It was our partner, Dr. Hill, and Alyssa, who ran our offices. And for the most part, that worked. But you hit certain, and when you're husband and wife working together, you need clarity in roles. Yeah. That helps a lot. Yeah. And so when we created this accountability chart, I became what's known as the integrator, which is kind of integrates all the major functions of the business. And he is what's known as the visionary. And if you ever read the description of the visionary and the integrator in Rocket Fuel or in Traction, this was us. This was like, oh my gosh, they're looking into our lives, personally and professionally. So having the clarity of those roles and the accountabilities of those roles, knowing what was in his seat, knowing what was in my seat, helped us a lot. And it actually helped me, as just in my accomplishments in the day-to-day, feel more empowered and more able to do the things that I knew the business needed to do.
Sure.
And that definitely kind of reignited some passion in me, which is always a good thing when you're trying to work and, have a family. It's hard to do. You're sacrificing some time with your kids. You're, trying to balance a million different things. And so if you can feel at least excited about what you're doing, that helps a lot. And I think just the structure of EOS is about execution. And so, there's a weekly leadership team meeting that is 90 minutes, which sounds like a lot to any leadership team not using EOS. But it becomes the most valuable 90 minutes of your week, and it frees you up so much of the rest of the week to be able to do what you need to do. Yeah. So there's so many things about it that EOS at its heart is a simple set of tools to run your business better.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because, you mentioned these 90-minute team leadership meetings. And a lot of times, people don't look at the practice, right? Not the dental practice, but the practice of how to lead and what accountability means. You kind of just go, it's like playing a game. Like, let's say it's football and you never practice. You just go out on the field and start playing. Right. No one goes over any of the plays. You don't talk about the film and all that stuff. Yep. And with these 90-minute leadership meetings, right, you have a chance to do that. So, that's, I think for a lot of people, you as an implementer, I think people have to realize that it takes an effort.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's about working on your business, not just in your business. Yeah. Most people, you get overwhelmed by working in the business. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're wanting, your business to have certain results, most entrepreneurs are going to go at it, right? Yeah. They're going to do everything they need to do. They're going to work as hard as they need to work. And it's hard sometimes to carve out that time, even if you are aware of the fact that you need to. And that is a big part of what EOS helps you do. Yeah. In addition to those weekly leadership meetings, you meet every 90 days off-site as a leadership team for quarterly planning, essentially. Good. Yeah. Again, EOS creates a 90-day world, and it's all about execution. So let's stop. Let's come up for air. What did we accomplish in the last 90 days? Did we, meet our priorities? Did we meet our objectives, whatever our goals were? What are our issues? And what are our priorities for the next 90 days? Yeah. To be able to be deliberate about exactly what you just said.
Yeah. So if you go back, like you said your education was at the University of Delaware, right? And then Rutgers for,
yes.
social work. How did that help, like, lay the foundation for you as a really good implementer for Lakeview, and then now as an implementer for EOS?
I think the thing that I loved about social work theory, I mean, I didn't go in thinking I was going to end up with a master's in social work. I was a psychology and women's studies major undergrad, and I always thought I wanted to be a psychologist because I wanted to be clinical. I wanted to be doing psychotherapy with patients versus, you know, a lot of social work is more systems based, and, you know, just there's a lot of different settings in which you could be. So, but I had a professor at University of Delaware who was, you know, ultimately got his doctorate, but he started with a master's in social work, and he spoke about the versatility of the degree and all the things that it can apply to, and that caught my attention, plus the fact it was 2 years versus 4 or 5. So I decided to get the master's in social work, and I think the combination of the clinical, you know, and psychological training that I had with the systems theory that social work uses applies to just about anything, and it really applies to organizations. So that's where I think, you know, it really helped me both at Lakeview and will help me now and does help me now in facilitating with other teams, because you're looking at the whole organization and all the moving parts and how they relate to each other. Right. And that's, to me, where you can really, you know, make a big difference. And that's what I love to do. Yeah. And the other piece of it is I'm not afraid to call out, you know, the tough things. We call it entering the danger. You know, you see stuff play out in the session room sometimes, and it's like, well, no, we need to stop now. We need to talk about this, you know? Right. So, and helping people get through those conversations for sure is, you know, something that helps with.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, listen, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break.
Okay.
Folks, we'll be right back with more from Jen Forte after this message from our sponsors. Don't go away.
I love that we both got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Oh, no signal. I don't have home internet.
Oh, that's a red flag.
Find the bars.
Your mom looks a lot like me.
Yeah, couple of hotties.
Thank you?
Ah, man. There's dead spots all over this place.
There really are. Oh, wow.
Nothing. Are you getting a good signal?
No, I'm not.
It's time for real home internet. Get it on the next generation 10G network, only from Xfinity. I love that we both got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Oh, no signal. I don't have home internet.
Oh, that's a red flag.
Find the bars.
Welcome back to Language of Leadership. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I've got Jen Forte with me, and Jen is an EOS implementer, an exited entrepreneur, a mom, and a wife running some great. You ran a great business. That was a great business. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we took a lot of pride in it.
Yeah, it's not easy to build a practice like that with 6 locations and then punch out. Exit. I mean, one of the things that I do for a living is I help organizations plan for an exit. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into, building an organization so that it's attractive to a buyer. So when you and Eric and your leadership team, Dr. Hill, you said, and Alyssa,
Yes.
when you guys finally got together and realized that you were going to do this, that's a big decision.
It is a big decision, yes.
Right? Talk a little bit about that, Jen, because I think, having it be attractive to a buyer, you've got to have a lot in place. Standard operating procedures. You mentioned earlier, I think a lot of people overlook this, but your buying power was important, right? Because when I come to now my cousin was a dentist, he sold it to the Smilist as well. But a lot changes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that change, and what you don't want to have change, or you don't want changed, is the patient experience.
Right.
So the lead up to that is a little different than growing a business.
For sure.
So let's
yes.
go through that.
Yes. Well, so, the decision really came, like I said, there were certain things that we really had trouble cracking as a leadership team. We really struggled with profitability. So we could grow and grow and grow, and our revenue grew year over year, and it looked amazing, and we kept trying to do things to make the profit grow with it, and it just wasn't. The expenses were growing, at the same time.
Sure.
And so that was a big issue because we had our associate dentists, the type of dentists that we wanted to have in our practice are the type of dentists that more often than not end up wanting their own practice.
Yeah.
They're sort of entrepreneurial, they're growth oriented, all of those things. And so we wanted to be able to offer equity in our business to those dentists so that they didn't leave and go open their own practice somewhere else because, the tenure is important. So that's really where this all started, was you need to have equity in order to offer equity. And so it just was this sort of realization that we really needed to make the business more profitable and build up that equity before we could even consider sharing any. And so that was early on in our EOS journey as well. And I think that's where it was a while to make some changes, difficult changes we needed to make. We had to, eliminate some positions, and we had sort of built it up to scale before we were quite there yet. And so through that process, it was, does this make sense to keep going and trying to do this ourselves? Because the options are you get some sort of financing, or you take out more debt, and debt was part of our issue with cash. So ultimately, it just kind of came over a little time, and it was mostly between my husband and Dr. Hill and I that it just kind of had run its course, and it was time. It was time for us to stop, trying to do it on our own and partner with an organization that could help us offer more of what we wanted to offer. Right. So at that point, we had also been working or had a relationship with a consultant, a broker kind of practice called Polaris Health Partners.
Sure.
And, they're really great people. We really had a good relationship with them. And so we engaged them to help us to basically build up the value, package up the practice, and take it to market. That ended up being a longer relationship than we thought it would be, because about a month into that that agreement or that partnership, a tree service truck drove straight into our Cherry Hill location.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It was the scariest thing. It caught on fire. Thank God it was lunchtime, because it hit the waiting room and there were no patients in the waiting room. The office manager was there in her office, and you can't even believe she walked out with just some scrapes and bruises. In any case, this created, obviously, a bit of a wrinkle in our plans.
Sure.
And so it took some time to deal with all of that, get us to where, fortunately, being a group practice, we were able to disperse our team and our patients to other locations that weren't that far away. Yeah. And so it really actually, went very well, all things considered. Yeah. So anyway, so that was a process. And at the same time, building and packaging everything that you said. So looking at each area of the business and how can we strengthen things.
Yeah.
The fact that we ran on EOS, though, we had a lot of that in place. And so that really helped a lot, that we were able to already, point to, we have our handful of core processes. We have consistency across, we've done the best that we could as far as, our expenses go, and then we kept doing more, because that was also part of profitability. One of the biggest lessons that I learned as a leader that I never fully grasped for a while is when you're talking about making a more valuable or profitable business, you increase if your overhead is 65%, that means you're keeping 35 cents of every dollar you make, right? Every dollar you bring in. So you increase your revenue by $1, you get 35 cents. You cut your expenses by $1, you get $1.
Right, exactly.
And it's so simple, and it's like this aha moment that, now we didn't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars to cut, but we looked for them wherever we could, and we made sure that we, to your point about, leadership and the language of it and what that means and getting the team rowing in one direction is we talked a lot about what is in it for the practice when we're more profitable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time your team members don't really understand what profitability is either, because what it is not is cash. It doesn't mean it's cash to spend.
Right.
So that's a whole different piece of it. And so we actually did formal meetings. I mean, we tried to make it fun and interactive, but to really talk about what it is and what's in it for the practice. That's how we buy new equipment. That's how we can upgrade our facilities.
Absolutely,
that's
sure.
how we can incentivize team members, know. So there has to be a why in it for them as well, and that it's good for the business. It's not just about the owners wanting to keep more money.
You know what's amazing? I sit here and listen to you, and I'm thinking to myself, you have this formal training as a social worker, and here you are, like 20 years later, this seasoned business leader, this seasoned entrepreneur. That scale, that process has to take time, and I don't think people recognize that. Sitting there and thinking about cost containment, price optimization. Hey, listen, we could sit here all day long and say we can raise our prices. You know what's going to happen? You're going to lose patience, right? People are going to say, "Oh, I can't go there." So what do? You have an option, and you start to look at your expense side. And you said it was an aha moment, but as a trained psychologist in a sense, social worker. You're probably thinking, "Shit, I never thought of this. I never thought of this."
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There were so many days that I'd sit here and go, "What am I doing? How did I get here?"
How did I get here?
Yeah, but so it's funny. Alyssa, who was on our leadership team, and was kind of the only employee on the team, right? Because I mean, I'm an owner's wife, and you've got all those dynamics, and a partnership. But so her husband came along with us one time when we went to Henry Schein does like a business of dentistry conference.
Oh yeah, sure.
And he came along, and we were having a dinner at the end of it, and kind of everyone was going around talking about like their takeaways from the conference and whatnot. And it came to him, and he said, "Well, I came here knowing that my wife was a lunatic. She works all the time, and she cares so much about her work and all of this." He's like, "Now I know there are 4 lunatics." Which was us as the leadership team, because we were those people who were just committed to what we did. We were all in no matter what we did.
Yeah.
And we wanted to improve. So that was at the heart of all of this, is you have to have a desire and growth, not just for growth's sake, but to do it purposely. So we went to the conferences, we read the books, we paid attention. And that, I think it was that particular conference, the one thing that we came away with was we were doing a lot right as far as a dental practice goes. But the piece that was missing really was being much more deliberate about our culture and our people.
Interesting. Okay.
Enter me, right? Because this is my strong suit. And so that was really when I became full-time, part of the leadership team and really focused purposefully on that in the business.
Yeah. And when the Smilist came in and started looking at the practice, I'm sure you had other suitors, but when they start to look at, oh gosh, the culture here is really great. Oh, they're on a framework like EOS. They have systems in place, right? All the brands are consistent. I go to every single practice and they all look the same. The patient experience is similar. So they had to be attracted to that, and that I think a lot of times people that are trying to package up their business, there's one statistic that we look at with Exit Planning Institute, right? So EPI comes out with these data points every year. Do you know that 80% of businesses who want to sell will never sell because they didn't do what you did, right? So, I mean, you look at EOS and where you are today. Talk a little bit about how you go out and attract new clients and how, basically, Jen, what your ideal customer profile is.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, the way that I go out and do that is a lot like this. It's conversations, it's meeting people, it's certainly minding my own network, of people that I've worked with over the years who already have a trust in me. But it's really about making that connection, and it is why I lead with being an exited entrepreneur, because I want them to know that I've been there. I've done that, and that's just telling my story in a 1-minute version. My sort of elevator pitch, so that they can understand that. But because our ideal client, I mean, really our target market, what EOS was built for, is organizations that are entrepreneurial, so they want to continue to grow, and they have 10 to 250 employees. So they're, it's more about size than it is about revenue. But the most important piece of that, though, is that they also have owners and leaders who are open-minded enough and, willing to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't have it all figured out, and I want something more from my business, and I'm willing to get uncomfortable to do it. They're less comfortable with the status quo than they are, with change. And so that's really key. And so it's listening to people. That's why it's a lot of conversations and a lot of asking questions. What's going on in your business? What are your biggest challenges? What are your biggest priorities? How are things going for you running your business? And just seeing if they're having some of those pain points like we were, because that's what it is. I mean, if you truly feel like your business is just coasting and everything's beautiful and, you don't need an EOS. Right. You're also probably lying to yourself, but you don't need EOS. So it's really about, that they have the motivation to do something different because they want something more. Yeah. So it's very often feeling like they can't take a day off without getting 10 phone calls because the business revolves around them and they have all the answers. It's often feeling just out of control. Like the business is going in some kind of direction, whether you want it to or not, or not the direction that you set out to go in. Sometimes it's feeling like you're stuck and can't grow anymore. Sometimes it's that you've grown so much and that there's chaos, and you need to bring some clarity to the chaos. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things I just listen for in conversations, and I ask people in my network to listen for, from their contacts or their friends and family. Because I really truly believe it's painful to be in those situations, and especially if you feel like you're fairly alone, or if you feel like you're not sure where to go next. You want your business to succeed, and so I love being able to again have the opportunity to help those people.
And you're as a social worker, you're trained to listen, right? So you want to listen to people because oftentimes, I mean we've seen it so often. That people want to talk. They want to solve the problem before they recognize what's going on, what's really happening in the practice or in your business.
Yes.
Are you focused on just any business, or because you have the experience in the medical or dental field, you're looking at other dental practices as well, or is it more broad than that?
It is more broad than that. I mean, obviously my experience is very applicable to dental and healthcare, and that's great. And I'm very open to working with dentists and any healthcare practitioners. But I do want to go beyond that. Again, I had this 20 years of business experience, in that one industry. So I love the idea of kind of spreading my wings to be learning more about other industries while I go. It's interesting because it's not one of my clients is a fundraiser for nonprofits. They do digital and direct marketing. Sure. And so, I just had a session with them a week or two ago, and they were talking about some meaty issue, and I cannot repeat it, of course, because they're using all this language that's specific to their field. But I still was able to, at the end, say, I think what I heard you say was, and it was, because it was about, again, the dynamics of the business or, whatever is the things that are common to all businesses. So that's why I can be effective for any, EOS is business agnostic. It doesn't matter your industry. But I do like the idea of, continuing to learn and grow myself.
Now with the kids, do they look at mom and dad and are they happy that you're not working together anymore?
I mean, they haven't out and out said it, but I have a feeling they are. I mean, again, little lunatic style, we would talk about work a lot.
Really?
But we legitimately, honestly, one of the things our EOS Implementer helped us with is my husband and I had a designed alliance. So it was basically a set of ground rules for how we were going to, work in these positions together. And one of them was like, no business talk on the second floor of our house.
Okay.
Yeah. And we literally had like an ear pull when the business talk was going, like, okay, we need to stop now, it needs to be done.
Yeah, sure.
So we would have to kind of ear pull at dinner sometimes. So the kids don't have to listen to that so much anymore. But, I think it's interesting now because my kids are 16 and 21. And so they're really, becoming adults. And the things that come out of their mouths now, we're like, oh my gosh, they were listening all this time,
It's a miracle.
Yeah, and so my oldest daughter wants to be a dentist. So she's, she's
cool.
going to dental school next year. And so, we just hear these things that they picked up from all those conversations too. They learned a lot about running a business, whether they wanted to or not.
Yeah, that's great. That is awesome. So what do you think the future looks like for you as an implementer? What would you like to see happen? Keep it balanced, right? So that you're not working too hard.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, again, I'm new to this practice, so I'm still trying to build clients. I want to work with, 8 or 10 or 12 more clients. But I want to do that deliberately, and I want to see how that feels as it goes. I mean, there's kind of a standard that a lot of implementers, if you want to be full-time and really big business, it's something like 20 clients a year. We'll see. I want to build up and see, where, like you said, what it feels like, because I don't want to. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm not, at the start of our family, we're pretty comfortable at this point in time. So that's a luxury that I have that also allows me to be, very deliberate about the time I take building the business and what I do. But so what does the future look like? Again, I just want to help people. A lot of when you're trying to build your business, it's a lot of business development, right? And you're spending a lot of your time doing that. I want to be in the session room. And I want to be talking with my clients, which I get to do tomorrow. So I'm excited.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you're
This is
welcome.
great.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
All right. If you could tell everyone how to get in touch with you, it'd be great.
Sure. Yes. So please call me if you like, 856-297-3687. My website, you can Google, our website's just changed, so you can Google Jennifer Forte EOS, and that'll take you right to my website, or I'm also on LinkedIn, and my email is jennifer.forte@eosworldwide.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, folks, that's a wrap for Language of Leadership. Check out Jen. She's on LinkedIn under Jennifer Forte, Forte, EOS Implementer.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you'll see her. We'll see you soon. Have a great week, everyone.